Thanks for joining us tonight at 10. I'm Brooke Buckner. We begin in Little Rock, where police say some of their own have been involved in a shooting. It happened here in the 11,000 block of South Ridge Drive just after 5 this evening. When police arrived, they heard gunshots coming from the back of the home. As they went to learn more, they found someone pointing a gun at them. Officers then shot at that person, but the suspect ran back inside. However, just seconds later, police say another officer shot the suspect at the front door. They have been taken to the hospital for non-life-threatening injuries, and the officers involved are now placed on administrative leave as the department investigates. And there are now 2 suspects in custody after a separate shooting last night in Little Rock that left 1 dead. As 40-year-old Al Malik Diamond and 46-year-old Anna Rogers have been charged with capital murder. The department says they were called to Karen Court around 9:40 last night, and when they got there, they found a man who had been shot. We're told paramedics worked to save him, but he later died at the scene. Tonight, their investigation continues. I'm joined now by meteorologist Simone Thomas. And Simone, I know a lot of people still plan to spend their Sundays outdoors doing all the things on the holiday weekend. What do we need to be prepared for?
Well, tomorrow there is going to be a little bit more of a risk of some showers and storms than what we saw today. So similar as far as the heat and humidity, but in the afternoon we will be tracking the potential for some spotty to scattered showers and thunderstorms. Temperatures looking to climb to the lower and middle 90s with feels like temperatures peaking in those lower triple digits. Here's kind of a screenshot or a snapshot of tomorrow afternoon, what it could look like across the state. Not quite hot enough for any heat alerts, which is good news. But again, we're in that time of year where the heat and humidity will continue to be a story. Here is a look as far as the rain chances. Best rain coverage or rain chance will be in north central and northern Arkansas, kind of ahead of a frontal boundary that's going to make its way into southern Missouri before it doesn't quite make it through the state. Closer to home in central Arkansas, 30% chance of that spotty rain coverage. Southern Arkansas has the least chance of picking up on some rain tomorrow. Full details over the next several days are coming up in that 11-day outlook, so make sure you stick around.
Thank you, Simone. The death toll continues to rise in Texas after catastrophic flash flooding this weekend. That just part of the reason search missions have become even more urgent for those still missing. Many of those children who were spending the 4th of July at a summer camp. Meanwhile, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has signed a federal disaster declaration and added 6 more counties to expand assistance to other hard-hit areas. 43 people are now confirmed dead after the torrential flooding, but many remain unaccounted for. Andrew Moore has the latest from officials as responders continue their search.
We continue to have hundreds of first responders on the ground, water, in this search and rescue process.
The search has continued in the air and on the ground.
100-meter distance on either side of the Guadalupe River from 1 mile north of Camp Mystic up through Hunt and Ingram.
More than 1,300 people are aiding in the search and rescue and in logistics, and responders have saved around 850 people. But they also know some people didn't make it, and they're finding those too.
We are finding bodies and stuff. We knew today was going to be that day.
Kerr County does have the support of the state and the governor. Abbott said today the county would have all the help they need.
Every asset and resource the state has is going to be made available.
And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem promised federal support. At the same time, the community continues to ask how this happened without warning. The answer today, the flooding simply happened. Too fast.
About 4 o'clock, we did not see any signs of the river rising, and by 5:20, we almost weren't able to get out of the park on the upper end.
Right now, Sheriff Larry Latha can only promise the rescue effort will be ceaseless until every missing person is found.
And we'll be on this till we find the last body.
As of right now, those 27 children from Camp Mystic are still missing. A county spokesman said the search continues even tonight and adds they have floodlights and thermal assets to make that possible. Meanwhile, at the state capitol, a battle is brewing over your right to vote on citizen-led amendments as Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin has now rejected a second attempt by a group trying to protect that process, all because of a new law that just took effect. Act 602 requires all ballot titles to be written at an 8th grade reading level, and the group Protect Arkansas Rights says that makes it harder for regular citizens to propose constitutional changes. That's why they're challenging the law in court, while also reworking the language for a third time. So far, the AG has rejected the group's second submission, citing its ballot title scored a college-level 12.2 grade rating, far above the 8th grade threshold. And while lawmakers say the goal is to make ballot language clearer for voters, the group's content director argues the opposite is happening.
They've passed many laws, dozens of laws, saying that your ballot title has to have this component or has to read in this specific way. And so it's kind of their own fault that this process is so complicated. It's pretty difficult to propose a constitutional amendment without using the word constitution, which has a lot of syllables. And so it's very difficult to meet that 8th grade reading level standard.
We also reached out to the Secretary of State's office for comment. In a statement, they say Secretary Jester has full faith in the Attorney General and his legal team. Meanwhile, the AG is also suing 2 companies for violating the Arkansas Deceptive Trade Practices Act. He accuses Bolt Steel Furniture of false advertising after 33 customers said they were scammed out of more than $27,000. He also filed a suit against the now closed Community Builders. Customers say 3-month bathroom remodels stretched far beyond that, and one person reported being harassed after speaking up. Griffin says elderly Arkansans were among the victims, losing as much as $17,000. Over at the nation's capital, the deadline is fast approaching for countries to make new tariff agreements with the U.S. or face a higher rate. CBS's Willie James Inman has the latest as the Trump administration is putting them on notice.
This weekend, President Trump is celebrating the first major piece of legislation for his second term.
It's really promises made, promises kept, and we've kept them. This is a triumph of democracy on the birthday of democracy.
The Friday signing ceremony was part of a 4th of July event at the White House, complete with a military jet flyover. The new law includes several campaign promises, such as no taxes on tips, an extension of the 2017 Trump tax cuts, and more funding for the military and border security. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act will also permanently raise the child tax credit to $2,200 and increase the state and local tax deduction to $40,000 for 5 years. Democrats have blasted the legislation for making cuts to food stamps and Medicaid. And now, as the White House turns to trade, they're also taking aim at the president's tariff policies.
The Trump administration, these across-the-board tariffs are going to hit Americans hard.
The president set a July 9th deadline for dozens of nations to make a deal with the U.S. or risk higher tariffs. Now the president says multiple nations could receive notice of new tariff rates early next week, which would go into effect in August.
I signed some letters, and they'll go out on Monday, probably 12.
The upcoming deadline leaves little time to negotiate.
You can't sit down with 200 countries. I think the letters are better.
So far, the UK, China, and Vietnam have made significant progress in trade talks with the United States. Now, it's unclear which nations President Trump will send those letters to on Monday. Willie James Inman, CBS News, Bridgewater, New Jersey.
Meanwhile, the president also spoke about a potential deal with China to keep TikTok active here in the U.S. He says the 2 countries pretty much have a deal in place, but adds it probably has to get approved by China, something he's not so sure will happen.
I'm not confident, but I think so. President Xi and I have a great relationship, and I think it's good for them. I think the deal is good for China, and it's good for us, and for us it's money. We make a lot of money if the deal goes through.
President Trump says they plan to start talks with China either Monday or Tuesday. And the effects of the newly passed Big Beautiful Bill will be felt here at home. According to 2024 data from the Arkansas Department of Human Services, 821,000 Arkansans rely on Medicaid, and healthcare advocates are concerned, saying it's not just people who will be impacted, but hospitals as well. With these new adjustments, Arkansas Center for Health Improvement claims Medicaid enrollment could go down by 14%, which means 114,000 Arkansans could lose their coverage. Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families says these changes will impact rural areas the most.
If you are someone who doesn't use Medicaid and SNAP, but you may lose your closest hospital, what does that mean in terms of healthcare costs for you, in terms of you having to travel further in order to access care? That is a significant thing that people may not be thinking about today, but we will have to think about soon as hospitals are trying to determine whether or not they can keep their bottom line.
States must have tracking and compliance systems in place by the end of 2026, with work requirements for able-bodied adults taking effect on January 1st, 2027. A children's book written by a doctoral candidate at the University of Arkansas has just won one of the highest honors in picture books, the Caldecott Medal. Morgan Wrigley sat down with author Andrea Rogers to talk about what the honor means and how the book celebrates her Cherokee heritage along with that of the illustrator.
When I was growing up, I didn't see books with people who looked like my family in them.
That's what inspired Andrea Rogers to write her children's book, Chooch Helped.
You know, I'm a Cherokee Nation citizen. Southeastern tribal culture wasn't evident in anything I was seeing when I was growing up. You know, at first I was saying, you know, someone should write this, someone should do this. And then I was like, I guess I'll do it.
The story follows a Cherokee family, older sister Sissy and her little brother Chooch, who always wants to help.
If someone's painting, he wants to paint. If someone's making fry bread, he wants to help. And so his help is often messy.
In the end, it's a story about grace and growth for the whole family.
Yes, we make mistakes, but you know, we can always try and do better tomorrow.
The book, its message, and its vibrant visuals of Oklahoma scenery and Cherokee culture have resonated. It recently won the prestigious Caldecott Medal. Rogers says the illustrations by Rebecca Kuntz brought her words to life.
But it actually doesn't need my words because she took my words and she told the story visually. And so a kid who can't read would still know what's going on. So we've got Chooch in his little red cape running around, and then we've got a super diverse family, right? And it's like, that's what Cherokee people look like. For her to be able to portray that in a way that's so warm and it's just full of love.
While the award is a major milestone,
it is really a huge honor for Rebecca to win this. She's been a professional artist for 30 years. It was her first picture book.
Rogers says it's the message that matters most.
Our cultural values matter, and our language matters, and you know, helping each other matters, and that's all tied together.
Thank you, Morgan. And the Two Rivers Garden Center opening up a farmer's market for the first time ever. How it's looking to support local growers after the break.
Tomorrow we could see some spotty storms in the afternoon with temperatures in the lower to middle 90s and heat indices in the lower triple digits. Your full forecast is coming up in 5 minutes, so stay with us.